All right, good morning everyone. My name is Devin Smith. I am a consultant at Tavora, working as part of the threat and incident response team. In this webinar, we will be talking about incident response methods. The methods that we will be covering in part one of this two-part series will be understanding what the steps are that you can take to be prepared for an incident, how you can identify when an incident has occurred, and the different methods that you can use for containment. Some companies will make two common mistakes that happen during an incident, one in which is not knowing when to call indicators of compromise an incident because of fear that it might not be in fact an incident. So they hesitate, they try to gain more resources and evidence into showing that some kind of incident has occurred before actually getting more resources involved. This can actually cause further harm and loss of information because of that whole entire time of waiting and trying to find out more about it. In an incident response situation, it's best to just call it when you actually start to see indicators that say that something has been compromised. Worst case scenario, it's pretty much just a nice training exercise for your core team. Second common mistake that a lot of people will make is not knowing when to bring in additional resources because of their limitations, that they are not a seasoned veteran for incident response. So they kind of hesitate, they wait, they keep trying to push as far as they can possibly go before getting other people involved. And next thing you know, they're completely drawn out on their resources. They're trying to get everyone in, that's the more advanced resources, and they're having to play that catch-up game of getting them informed in what has been done, what they need to do, and what the current overall status is for the incident. Preparation and identification stages should be done continuously throughout the whole entire process till an incident has been found. Part of a preparation stage is putting systems in place. You should have a fully developed multi-layered defense in place at your company well before an incident has ever occurred. Putting these systems in place, pretty much trying during an incident is not the time or place. You need to have these well beforehand. The tendency, though, is to have these securities put in, or these security solutions put into place, and then they end up looking for kind of like an email alert system. So you put one of these in solutions into place, then you end up having Orion alerts that will let you know when some kind of incident has occurred or when something has triggered one of them. This can also cause for different bad situations because of the fact that these solutions know attack signatures and traits, whereas if you have an actual analyst that is looking at these solutions continuously or periodically at the very least, then they'll be able to kind of build up a knowledge on the behavioral instincts of what these solutions provide, and they can actually respond in a more timely manner. Another part where a lot of companies are weak is in their training of their users. The common thought that seems to go around is that they feel like they do not have the time or resources to develop their users' understanding of how to kind of be skeptical of information that they receive and they interact with, so they themselves do not become victims. These companies, could look to an outside resource that can come on site, train their users without loss of IT, time and resources, and this cuts down on the amount of overall training that has to be done by the company itself for itself, and allows the users to actually become further educated. So you don't have that weak component as much anymore. Now for everyone's favorite topic, documentation. Documentation seems to always be that thing that people talk about but never really end up putting into place until it's too late. The great thing about documentation, though, is it's a reminder of all the steps that we need to be doing when everything is going wrong, and it becomes easy to skip over critical steps. Things that you should be documenting and having an understand of ahead of time is procedures like your containment policy. Will you contain and clean all of the infected systems, or will you make use of the knowledge gained when you take the watch and wait approach, where you can learn more about what the attacker is doing and trying to figure out what other systems that they have infected or interacted with in general. These types of situations need to be planned out ahead of time, so you have guidelines that are set out for your core team so they understand what needs to be done without having to be told explicitly every single step along the way, and so they're not sitting there waiting for the next command to be, dealt out. So it can be a nice fluid method. While most companies have decent backup policies in place, it's good to review them well before an incident ever occurs to kind of see if the backup policy aligns with something that will be helpful to the time of an incident. If you're reviewing it and you see that your backups are done every Sunday, so let's say hypothetically, every Sunday you do a full entire backup. Every Wednesday you're doing a differential. You should be pretty decently well good. But possibly or possibly not, just because of the fact that if you keep those backups only on system or only on file for 2 weeks or even a month, but you find out that the attacker has compromised your system 2 months back. So every single one of your backups now for that system have been compromised. So you can't exactly use that backup for rolling back in an incident. So these are the things that you need to start thinking about when it comes to your backup policy in regards to an incident. And it's not to say that you need to hold on to every single backup and keep it forever. It's just you need to do regular risk management and try and figure out what is best for the company in the time frame that you gauge to be responsible and the amount of data that your company wants to store. You should also, ahead of time, understand which systems can and cannot be taken offline during an incident when you're in the containment phase. This is crucial to have documented well before an incident because you need to understand what can and cannot be taken offline and what your alternative methods are going to be the moment that you can't, say, take a web server down. Well, what are your possibilities outside of that? And we'll kind of dive more into that when we reach into the containment phase later on in the slides. Also, during your preparation, you should be setting up your core team. You should know who these people are ahead of time, who from security, operations, network, legal, HR, public affairs, all the different key players that might have a hand in an incident, but maybe not every incident, but at least this way so you know who to go to for each and every spot during an incident. That way, so there's not any trying to figure out who to bring in or what their contact information is. Just, getting these people at least on like a call tree. Each one of these people should also know ahead of time what their responsibilities are during an incident. This way they can focus on what they do best and what their specialization is during the incident. You don't have say a lawyer that's trying to figure out and understand the whole entire inner workings of RAM. They know that their duty and task during the actual incident is to be the legal side. You should also have a training regimen set up for how the court team members are going to stay up to date on their knowledge of what it is that they're going to be doing during the incident. So knowledge on different new tools that have come out, if a old method is now outdated and has actually been found to be a risk to an incident. So just a regular regimen for, do they have 1 hour a week or X amount of time during each week to jog their memory and their knowledge on an incident, or are they expected to do it during their off time? You can also set up internal or external resources to come in and stage an incident in a dev environment. That way, so your core team can come in, respond to it as if it's a real incident, and kind of help build those individual skills, as well as also developing their teamwork. That way, so when it does come time for an incident, they're more cohesive, they're more fluid, they know how each other responds and knows how to work with each other in a lot more easier manner. So on to identification. If you stop and look at your environment, what information do you gather? Are you currently pulling everything from all of your systems and hoping to sift through it all in a solution like Splunk? Or are you kind of taking in just a core set of logs that you do analysis on? It's kind of a common thought that everyone understands and knows that you should be bringing in all the different egress logs or even just logs in general from your network. But what about your actual systems data? Are you bringing in information on who's interacting with what files and directories to the point that you know what's being done with the files on each and every system, or at least your core critical systems like your HR systems, your legal systems, financial systems. That way so you can maybe catch any kind of data tampering or exfiltration that may be happening. Also, another key thing that's it's been coming more about is looking for key indicators of attack or compromise within your environment. Are you looking for both, possibly? While looking for one is better than looking for none, you should be considering both, considering that the actions of the accounts should be looked at ahead of time. So learning that whole behavioral analytics ahead of time, as well as what processes are being done. So IOAs are great for helping catch an attacker during an incident or well before it really becomes a full-on incident and they've caused any harm to your systems. While IOCs are equally helpful, but they're more for once the attacker has actually done something. They've already compromised the system. Both have their great bits of information to know and work with, but both have their time and place, and you should be utilizing both on a regular basis. During the discovery of an indicator, the user should also understand who they can escalate this incident to, as well as who else should be informed during this incident. This way, so there's a nice clear-cut policy for if someone over in finance notices that there's a random window that popped up, spewed out some information, and then disappeared. kind of a random thing to just happen if they're just sitting there doing their normal work tasks. So they should probably, know exactly who they should escalate this incident to so someone can come in and look into it. So doing system level investigation. So you're looking for the identification of different indicators of compromise. There's different helpful built-in tools like WMIC that can help paint a picture of what applications are running on each system. The command that we see here on this slide has the ability to run against all systems that are stored in the system.txt file. You can also just run this without the node command or option inside there, and it will just grab from that local system. But it's good to note that if you do run it with the node part for that command, then you have to be an administrator in order to run it across the network. Otherwise, you can only run it locally. And one great part to actually using this node with command with the system.txt is it allows us to load up different files, such as we have the web server file, the app server file, our database file, so we can pull in pools of information, all of this, and then be able to actually compare like servers that should have the same exact, or at least close to the same exact information on all of them across all the systems. That way, you're not kind of looking at a web server against a SQL server and then wondering why you have all these outliers. Because what we're trying to do with this command is look to see where there might be a possible variation in software or processes that are running on that system. That way, so we can kind of narrow down the needle in the haystack kind of situation where we're finding out which one we should kind of be looking more to. Because we don't really care that our systems are running Windows, Microsoft Office, or anything else on a system across all of them. They all have it. Different tools that you can utilize to make more use of this information that you're gaining during this time with using something like WMIC is something like ElkStack, where you can load up this file into it and be able to visualize these deviations, be able to kind of build more reports, query against the different results, and be able to try and pick through the information. There's also tools that are statistical analysis tools like CANSA that will help you run analysis to figure out where the outliers are based off of long tail analysis. Both will be able to aid in the ability to look across multiple systems and try and figure out where that deviation is. There's also the network level, where we should be looking at the egress logs to try and find those different indicators of compromise. This will allow us to start looking at what type of traffic is leaving our environment, maybe contacting a command and control server. This could be a service that is beaconing out to a malicious site at regular or pseudo-regular intervals. Systems that have a connection that have been open for a really extended period of time. You can utilize a script like Persistent by Eric Conrad to help establish which connections have been open for long periods of times across multiple systems. There's also different solutions out there that you can run queries against them to try and figure out the same exact type of information. Do we see that there's multiple connections throughout the system or the environment that are all pinging and talking to this one server on the outside that we have found to be a malicious site? Tools like Splunk, ElkStack can also ingest these logs, be able to allow you to run those queries against these logs, and also be able to put them into a graph. So say if you do have a beacon, you'll start to be able to kind of visualize when that beacon is occurring, how often it's occurring, and other just different analysis that will be able to bring about a clearer picture of what it is that you're dealing with and what systems might be contaminated. So once you know which systems have been contaminated and which ones you need to kind of look at, you should go into the containment. The key thing to remember with this is that it's not supposed to be a stage where we're fixing everything and trying to get the systems back up and running. This is really just a stage to bandage up the environment and stop the bleeding. Eradication and recovery stages are meant to be the fixing of the systems and backing them up and getting them running again. During the containment phase, we need to focus primarily on what's going to stop the incident from continuing, what's going to contain the attacker to where they can no longer enter into our systems, can no longer exfiltrate data, and just overall contain it. So we're trying to harden the systems temporarily. Companies need to know ahead of time what their short and long-term containment strategies will be for various systems. Have a guideline to what you will be doing with each system so you can begin setting up a different solution for all these various types of systems that you have in your environment. You can do several things such as looking at which ones have been infected and being able to think of, okay, can we separate this into a different segment? Can we take it offline? If we can't, when we do move it to the segment, will it be in a not trusted relationship with the rest of the system so it can still maintain and do its regular working, but not actually be able to compromise our environment any further? Short-term should be something that you can implement quickly and effectively to halt the incident within the environment. Some of these solutions sound great to some and a nightmare to others. This is why you need to consider the implications of each ahead of time so you are not weighing out the pros and cons and arguing about it during an incident with the system owners. You need to know that well ahead of time so it's planned out that this is what you plan to do with that server or system in general. These considerations should be weighed out, preparations should be made ahead of time to make sure that the containment strategy can be done at a moment's notice. The core team and any specialized help should practice pushing these containment solutions to iron out these sticking points that may occur during the movement. This will make for an effective and knowledgeable short-term containment phase. Different long-term containment should take place after gathering the evidence. So short-term is merely just to get the incident under hand and stop it from continuing. Then we move into the forensics side where we're gathering evidence, we're building up that investigation material, so then we can move into the long-term containment, where it's much like the short-term, but in this idea, we're doing more of the patching of systems for that vulnerability. We're patching neighboring systems as well or similar systems. So say we noticed that one of our web servers was compromised, but we didn't notice it on this other web server that is exactly the same. Well, long-term solution, we should be patching that same exact system so that it does not allow that attacker to have another gateway back in through the same exact methods. We could even insert different intrusion prevention systems, change passwords, alter trust relationships, apply firewalls and router filtering rules, remove accounts that the user had access to, such as changing their username, the password, or any accounts in general that they might have created during their compromise of our environment. Shutting down different backdoor processes used by the attacker, and anything else that will allow us to have a long-lasting effect on stopping the incident. And just like short-term, you should rehearse these as a core team. You should know exactly what it is that you're going to do ahead of time and how to do it. Not just knowledge-wise, but actually do these, so you can actually know how to do these ahead of time as a team or as an individual. And that concludes our first part for this series. Does anyone currently have any questions for me? All right, 1 second, just pulling it up. Will the slides be available? Yes, we can definitely make the slides available. We can gather up a list of everyone that attended and be able to distribute them out. I know we're also currently recording this, so that will also be available as well. All right, well, that completes the coverage of the first part of this two-part series. Hopefully we will see you back next week, where we will cover eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. Thank you very much, and have a great day.